Hi there. Welcome to Blood Moon Milk, the astrology show that comes out every new and full moon to help guide you on your mindfulness, meditation, and manifestation journey. I'm your host, Aurora, and there we go. You don't have to see my messy kitchen now. I wanted to hop on and do a live because we've got the full moon around the corner in just a couple of days, and the astrology at the moment is really, really intense. I think that we're seeing that. Obviously, if you're in LA, you're feeling it, you're hearing it, you're seeing it outside your windows. And so I thought it would be important to come on, even if nobody's here yet watching this, maybe somebody will watch the replay and it'll make sense. But just to talk about what is going on cosmically right now with everything that's going on. The full moon is only going to ramp up the intensity of the themes of whatever it is that you're experiencing and going through in life at the moment. And that's okay. But I think it's important because people can tend to be overwhelmed by the news and feel like there's nothing that they can do and feel sort of hopeless or desperate or sad. And all of these are valid feelings, but remember, you have to fill your own cup first before you can go and help other people. Otherwise, you just literally have nothing else to give, and then you run yourself down, you run yourself ragged, and then you become even more burdensome to people who are already going through difficult situations. So that's why I think that mindfulness, meditation, and manifestation practices are all really important, especially in times of turmoil, especially in times of uncertainties. And astrology can kind of help us to unpack why things are unfolding the way they are, but also what we can do and how the energetic tides are turning. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we'll get into what's going on with the astrology of this Sagittarius full moon. Let's see. All right. So here we have the full moon chart for the full moon in Sagittarius, which will happen on Wednesday, early in the morning Wednesday. It might feel more like Tuesday is actually the full moon because the full moon will be happening at 3:43 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time if you're on the East Coast, and then adjust the time accordingly for wherever you might be watching. But I know I have a lot of East Coast listeners, viewers, but there's people out there who watch me all over the world. So adjust the rising sign for your locality. But the important thing is where the sun is and where this moon is. They're going to be at during the full moon, which will be, as we can see here, at Sagittarius, 20 degrees, 39 minutes, right across from the sun here at 20 degrees, Gemini, 39 minutes there. So that's not really unusual. That's how a full moon works. Every full moon is directly opposite the sun. Hold on, let me take a sip of coffee. And as we can see, there's a lot of red in this chart. There's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of angry stuff kind of happening here that I think we are feeling. The first thing that I see, so it's a Sagittarius full moon, right? Sagittarius is the sign that is most closely ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is here at 0 degrees Cancer, which is the most aggressive sign at one of the most intense degrees of the zodiac. Cancer 0 degrees is on the axis, the world axis. The world point is at 0 degrees. So 0 degrees or at 0 degrees Aries of 0 degrees Cancer is square to that. And Jupiter is here making things even more massive than they might otherwise be. And so there is the likelihood that things that are happening now, between now and the full moon, are really going to be getting blown out of the water, making a sort of mountain out of a molehill sort of situation, if you will. Things that don't need to be a big deal are going to be a big deal. Like Jupiter here is going to expand everything it touches, and is conjunct Mercury at 4 degrees Cancer. So there's going to be a lot of talking. There's going to be a ton of communication, a lot of opinions. Certainly people who feel the need to protect their space. Cancer is really protective of their people, and they will go on the offensive to make sure that their people are protected before things can happen, like attacks. And so if people in communities are feeling like they are going to be attacked, this is a signature that people will be reactive and be taking potentially offensive actions to protect their communities. So whatever side, whatever that looks like, will be unfolding in big public ways between now and the full moon. And we're already starting to see it. I'm thinking that this full moon is definitely going to be we're going to be looking at LA a lot during this full moon. I'm going to pull up the map real quick for the full moon, and we can see, I'm going to scroll in a little bit here, use some of our astrocartography skills. We've got the Neptune line, and Neptune has just moved into Aries, remember, and Saturn here just passing over Los Angeles. And so what that means is that could be that city, and we're already seeing it, is a hot spot for activity during this full moon. Let's see, can you guys see my no, you can't see it. Let me make sure that you're seeing. Let me share the other screen real quick. Sharing the astrocartography map. Here we go. So here we are. We have the Saturn line and the Neptune line right at LA. And so this is telling me that this is going to be a hotspot for activity. Also, remember, we have Saturn, who's just moved into Aries, and Saturn in Aries is a wartime signature. Saturn and Neptune in Aries, also a wartime signature. The last time we had these two planets in Aries was when we had the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, was when Pluto was in Aquarius, but then also World War II for Neptune when he was in Aries last. So there's a sense of ideology that is playing right now. There's a sense of protecting our communities right now. And there's a sense of things that are just and unjust. Now, remember that Sagittarius is the only sign in the zodiac. Well, Cancer is the most aggressive sign in terms of like going after what it wants. And with Jupiter there at 0 degrees, we're seeing a lot of aggression coming out of the woodwork. But this full moon is also, in a weird way, ruled by the moon, which is ruled by Cancer. Again, there is Jupiter there. So there's this sort of mutual reception of this full moon saying to me that the qualities of both Cancer and Sagittarius, and where Gemini is too, are all going to be highlighted in really profound and over-the-top ways for this foreseeable near-term future, at least until this full moon and the energy starts to taper off. But between now and the full moon on the 11th, we're just going to see it ramp up over and over and over again. I also, let me share my screen again and we can look at the chart some more. Sagittarius is the only sign that is depicted holding a weapon. So it's got its bow and arrow. It takes aim. It wants truth. It wants justice. It also has to do with the legal system. So this kind of suggests to me that the legal systems will be used as a tool for justice, for reconciling some of that emotional damage that is going to be so talked about. However, the legal systems are incredibly slow and slow moving. So don't expect to see things that happen now really be resolved until much, much later. But if you're just joining me, we're talking about the Sagittarius full moon. We're talking about how Jupiter is now at 0 degrees of Cancer, how that is relating to world events, and what we're going to see unfolding on the world stage between now and the full moon on the 11th. This is the chart. I did just pull up the chart for the astrocartography. We are seeing lines going through Los Angeles, namely the Saturn in Aries line and the Neptune in Aries line, where they are conjunct here 1 degree apart in Aries. Now, this is a very aggressive, wartime, ideological sort of signature. So we could be seeing more and more actions ramping up around that time of this full moon that have a sense of righteousness and ideology, as well as restrictions and people wanting to fight, wanting to say what's on their mind, what they believe in, but feeling hemmed in and like they can't, because Saturn is right here at that 0 degree mark, 1 degree mark of Aries, really asserting himself as a warrior, as a military leader, regardless of whether or not it is actually a beneficial thing. So what else do we have going on adding to this full moon? So we have Jupiter here at 0 degrees Cancer, which is the sign, like the home sign of the moon. So we've got that mutual receptivity, as we said. We also have Mercury here at 4 degrees Cancer. So when Mercury and Jupiter are conjunct, and a 4-degree orb is conjunct in my book between Jupiter, especially Jupiter likes to expand everything he touches. So 4 degrees to Mercury is well within that conjunction range. So there's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of communication, a lot of action, a lot of defensive communication, and also a lot of emotional vitriol. So people having really emotional stories that they need to tell coming out of the woodwork. I think we're already seeing that happening. We also have, so in a beneficial placement to this, we have Vesta here. We also have, Vesta is about the hearth and the home, and that's kind of feeding and fueling this energy of community and keeping our homes safe. And what is the idea of our home? Scorpio is also really secretive. So there could be things that are happening in silence, happening behind closed doors right now in a big way, like big silence, big communications happening in covert ways that are helping us to protect our hearts and homes. And also the divine feminine energy that is representative of Hestia. Hestia was one of the only goddesses in Greek mythology who didn't really have beef. She really just wanted to take care of that internal flame, the things that we desire at home, that sense of harmony, a peaceful home, more or less, so to speak. That's what Hestia represents. So that is one good thing that's going on in this chart, but there is a lot of trouble. There's a lot of strife happening as well. So let's look at what's going on here between Venus and Pluto. These two guys, I think they will be square just prior to the full moon, when Venus is at, let's see what Venus is at right now. She's at 2 degrees. So we'll wake up on Monday. I'm recording this on Sunday. And I think that the markets are going to be down. Wall Street, S&P 500. I think we're going to see more downtrend markets happening on Monday. So gird your 401k portfolios. But I think that could be a buying opportunity if that's what you're looking for. Just don't panic or panic sell at a loss, because that's when you really do damage to yourself. But now that Venus is in Taurus, where Venus is exalted in the sign of Taurus, she is still like going to be duking it out with Pluto, and Pluto is in retrograde at 3 degrees Aquarius up here. They're square each other on on Monday. And then so that square will still more or less be in effect during the full moon. So Venus in her home sign of Taurus is very sensual. She's very practical, pragmatic, down to earth. What do we value in terms of our comfort? What does comfort mean? Where is this comfort coming from in terms of a place of privilege? And that's really butting up against Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. Now, remember, Pluto did go into Aquarius back in November 19th last year. And really just has been kind of on a tear ever since. Now he is retrograde, but the themes of Pluto in Aquarius are humanitarianism, grassroots, ground up, inverted pyramid of power structure, where like Capricorn was all about top down power. Pluto in Aquarius is all about bottom up power, consolidating the cream rising to the top, if you will, but also the everyman, the average person coming together, pulling together with their neighbors and working together for a common betterment of society and humanity tomorrow. And we're at the beginning of this journey and it's retrograde. So we're getting some of the stuff that's already happened and having some opportunity to revise some of the things that have happened. But at the same time, we've got this Saturn-Neptune conjunction here at 2 degrees of Aries, which is actually sextile to that Pluto as well. Fire, where this Saturn and Neptune placement are in Aries, very fiery. We also have Eros going on over here too. That means there could be some romance and some like hot times found on the battlefield. Maybe there's some dramatic romances that could be unfolding for some of us out there. But that is actually working with the Pluto. So it tells me, even though what we're seeing right now is atrocious, it is bad. These are not things that we want to happen, right? But we still have this overarching energy of things moving forward towards a better place. Even though right now it seems like everything is kind of just in the crapper. And it is, but it has to fall apart first for us to be able to rebuild better tomorrow. And that's the sense that I'm getting, is that, okay, we've really made a lot of forward progress, quote unquote, forward progress with that Pluto at 3 degrees Aquarius, but he's going back retrograde now and reconsidering some of this progress he's made. And now Saturn and Neptune in Aries is our slow moving planets, all of them, Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune, all very slow moving. The fastest of which is Saturn, but Pluto definitely will be winning here. So at the end of this journey, we'll be seeing more and more humanitarian themes emerging, but Pluto is a slow mover. He's going to be in Aquarius for the next 20 years or so. So we're at the beginning of that long humanitarian journey. And so when I see this clash here of this 1 to 2 degree meetup with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, that's restrictions, that's authoritarianism, that's ideology. Neptune is about dreams. It's about the unseen and the like sort of a spiritual quality, sort of a spiritual quest, if you will, for some people, coming together to fight, because Aries is the warrior planet and he is in Leo now. He's been in Leo for quite some time. He first entered Leo back in December, November last year, went retrograde, was in Cancer for a long time, and then moved back into Leo back in March, I believe. So he's just getting ready to move into Virgo for the first time in a long, long time. But right now, let me pull up this other chart, because I think that what we're seeing is interesting. So I have the chart for Los Angeles, because we've got a lot of news going on there. But I also wanted to pull up this chart because, not that one. Hold on. So this chart, let's move these around real quick. Give me a second. Okay, so this is the full moon chart on the inside wheel right here, moving around. And then we have the commander-in-chiefs, the Cheeto Man. We have his chart here. We're seeing a Mars return to his natal Mars during this full moon. So he's feeling very empowered and very much in control of the situation, being the head of the military. I think we'll be seeing that kind of unfold. But also that kind of aggression centered in somebody's chart can be also signifying that there are accidents that could happen, right? Like there just could be because of where this is at. It's also in, if we were to swap it around, it's in his 6th or 12th house of hidden enemies. So there could be major unexpected events that happen around this full moon that could be quite devastating to the psychology, the subconscious of the leader of the United States at the moment during the course of this full moon. And also, like, looking at the rest of his chart, I really don't like to spend a lot of time on his chart, but I did see this and thought it was unusual and worth noting. Also, I did have the chart for Los Angeles pulled up earlier. I'm just going to swap. So we've got, let's see, there we go. So we've got LA here. LA is now on the inside because there's a lot of stuff happening in LA at the moment, and I think it's worth looking at. Now, the Mars for the natal Mars for Los Angeles is at 17 degrees Capricorn, where the midheaven is of this full moon. Is there anything at 20 degrees? There's the vertex, a part of fortune over here, is at 10 degrees 20 degrees Taurus, which would be in a quincunx to this full moon. So work partnerships could be disrupted. Also, official partnerships, which could be government, because we're talking about a city again. And I've been saying for a long time, if you've been following me, I've been saying, look, when we have Saturn enter Aries and we have Neptune enter Aries, these are signatures of war, whether it's civil war or rebellion, depends on which war we're talking about. But we've got Neptune in Aries, we've got Saturn in Aries, and then Pluto in Aquarius. All of those outer planetary placements have been historically linked to major changes geopolitically, and especially for this country in particular, in America. And I've been saying we are also in the midst of our Pluto return, and I'm not at all surprised that we're seeing the energies kind of ramp up as Pluto is going backwards again for that last time. He will not be going back into Capricorn at all, but as he goes backwards, that energy kind of gets closer to the natal energy of the United States. And 1 degree is still within orb for Pluto placements. He has to be very specific because he's so slow moving. If you give him a wide orb, it doesn't really work. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of conflict, but also a lot of opportunities for people coming together, because we've also got the South Node is here in the 11th house of LA. This is LA's chart dictating the rising signs here. So the South Node, this is communities coming together and sort of coming together historically for acts of service to other people, but also finding creative renewal and rebirth and regeneration through this 5th house placement of the North Node in Pisces for LA. So am I worried about LA? Yes, but with the caveat of this is somewhat destined and it will reshape communities. Ultimately, it will be a positive thing, but right now we are in the thick of it. And this is why. We have, it's sort of a T square between we've got Venus, she's opposing Vesta. So money, what's comfortable, all things beautiful and easygoing and coming into our lives, squaring Pluto. That's going to be rough on the markets. And then also opposing Vesta. So that's the hearth, that's the home. And so we're going to be coming up against this sort of internal privilege reflection. Like, are we going to stand up for what we believe is right? Because again, this is the Sagittarius full moon, which is all about truth and the legal system, and also not being afraid to go and fight for what it seeks out and believes in. And I think that people are witnessing and seeing a lot of things they're not happy with. Now, we do have Chiron at 26 degrees of Aries. That's close enough to be working with this full moon in a positive way. So this can bring about some healing. But it's going to be, I think this will be ultimately healing for the people that the full moon are affecting the most. And again, Sagittarius is also the sign of travel, international travel. So these people who we're seeing taken from, their homes or their businesses or places of work and their communities, again, this is a sense of people coming together, standing up for what's right and what they believe in, and having ultimately what are healing experiences from this. However, it's because they are showing up to defend what they believe in. And yes, with Mars at 26 degrees over here of Leo, I think we're going to be seeing somebody I hate making predictions, but I know when energy is good and it's flowing and it's easy and it's happy. And I also know when energy is not. And as Jupiter starts to move closer and closer to 3 degrees of Cancer, it's going to be coming into conflict with Pluto at 3 degrees. Pluto in Aquarius is not going to jive well with Jupiter in Cancer. That's going to be a harsh aspect. Pluto is the lord of the underworld. He's very wealthy and he's controlling and he's slow moving. Jupiter is abundance. He's joyful. He's optimistic. As we are coming into that hard aspect between Jupiter going into 3 degrees Cancer, where Mercury is already going to be starting to move on by then, we're going to see this escalate a little bit more. And I'm just going to scoot this timeline ahead a little bit so we can see what that looks like. So this is just one day after the full moon. We're keeping track of Jupiter here, okay, as I move forward. So we've got Jupiter going into 1, 2, and then just like a few days away from now, we've got Jupiter conjunct the sun, 2, 3 degrees, squaring Pluto. Not squaring, but sesquisquare to Pluto. And that's just July 23rd. So we're going to see, and that'll be around the new moon. So we'll be seeing some things like really getting tense and ramped up. This full moon is going to feel dramatic because we've got Jupiter, the ruler of the full moon, at 0 degree of one of the most intense signs of the zodiac, if not the most aggressive, outwardly aggressive of the zodiac, really starting to show up and make things feel bigger than life. So we also have what have I talked about? I've talked about Mercury. So we again with Mercury at 4 degrees of Cancer, and then Venus at 5 degrees of Taurus. I think we're going to see the markets kind of coming down in a big way this week. The markets are not going to be happy with what's going on in LA because this is basically tantamount to a Civil War declaration that is happening when the president-in-chief is having people vote that they can deport citizens And then they, use the military to go and find citizens to randomly target in civilian neighborhoods. That is, to me, that's where the sun is in Gemini. It's all about double talk, right? It's about talking out both sides of your mouth at its lowest expression. I'm not saying all Geminis do this, but this is just one way that energy can unfold. And I think we're seeing it. They're saying, oh, these people are bad. They don't belong here. They don't know who these people are. They're just rolling up to some neighborhood and taking people off the street and then using this as an excuse to declare martial law. So we've got, this is again Saturn at 1 degree Aries, coming in saying like, these are my rules. This is the way it's going to be. We've got Neptune at 2 degrees Aries. So again, that's a conjunction here. And it's harshly aspecting this. I mean, in some ways, it's a good thing for the long term, but it's also a bad thing. We've got Pallas here at 25 degrees Aquarius, opposite Mars at 26 degrees of Leo. This is another interesting power move signature. Pallas, the asteroid Pallas Athena, is all about wisdom and planning. So it's almost like this thing was planned. It's also in the 11th house. Pallas is in the 11th house of the chart, which, and it's also an Aquarian sign too. So Pallas is planning on the behalf of humanitarian movements and causes for the people, but it's butting up against that Mars in Leo down here at 26 degrees, which is also representative in some ways of the president at the moment, because his Mars is also at 26 degrees, but Mars is also the rule, like in Leo, it's a ruler, it's the king, it's the sovereign, it's the head of state. So this has been a planned attack. And so this isn't anything random. This is something that they are orchestrating to blow stuff out of the water. Again, we have Mercury conjunct Jupiter down there at the bottom of the chart, so that they can be aggressive and attack people in their homes and their communities and do some double talk about it. And then like try to basically declare war on themselves. And I have been saying for a long time that I don't think that the president actually was elected. I think it was a scam that Elon Musk handed to him. And I think the truth will ultimately come out. And maybe that's the truth that we get to see unfold during this full moon. I'm not holding my breath, but I do know that Sagittarian energy, above everything else, wants the truth. It wants the truth. It cannot stand a lie. It cannot stand a liar. And that is something it will go to war over, is if you are calling a Sagittarius person, calling them out and saying that they're a liar, or talking bad about them, saying that they've lied about something. Those are fighting words to a Sagittarius person. Now, a Gemini, their energy is a lot more curious and a lot more sort of diplomatic in some ways, because it wants to see both sides of the picture, right? But it's also not as scrupulous as Sagittarius is when it comes to discerning what is fact from what is fiction. And so that's a strong undercurrent, underlying theme for what's going on during this full moon. Are there lies that are being told to us? Absolutely. Are they being told to us in a big way? Absolutely. We've got Jupiter only 10 degrees away from that sun in Gemini. So Jupiter and the sun still, it's a wide conjunction, but it's still enough to be a conjunction, especially with Jupiter and the sun concerned, because Jupiter expands everything it touches. So it kind of reaches out a little bit further than the normal planet does, because it's the planet of expansion. So it's an out of bounds conjunction. It's a different sign, and it's very, very strong at that sign. Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer. So we've got a lot of powerful, loud energy happening right now. But I do think that it will be ultimately healing and ultimately leading us as a collective, as a country, to make more humanitarianly based and minded decisions in the future. But we're just having to, I think, wake up and shake up the people from an energetic perspective, saying we cannot let the injustices lie anymore. You have to wake people up in order to get them to be ready to take action. And that's what I think that we're seeing. So what else do we have going on in this chart? Let's take a look one more time. So we've got okay, let's talk about the nodes here too, because we've got some interesting things happening with the nodal points as well during this full moon. So we've got the north node is in Pisces at 23 degrees here. What else is close to 23 degrees? We've got the sun. The sun is also in another mutable sign. So we've got the sun squaring and the moon squaring the nodes. And so they're only 3 degrees apart from being exactly square, but that's still enough. So this mutable square between the north nodes, and it's going right through the center of the chart here. So we've got north node, south node, and then we've got sun, moon, all in at 23 or 20 degrees of the mutable signs. Mutable sign energy is very comfortable with changes. Doesn't necessarily like to initiate them, but it can be really adaptable to them. When you have a lot of mutable signs in your chart, you tend to be able to kind of go with the flow pretty well. However, you're not always the best at making decisive actions. But I think because we have Saturn in Aries right now, that's one thing that's going to be forcing people to make choices. Like, it's going to kind of draw a line in the sand. Which side are you on? Are you on this side or are you on that side? And so I think that's going to start to cultivate more and more of a willingness for people to kind of man up and show up for what they really believe in. What else do we have going on? We've got this sort of intense semi-square action going on here between Juno. Juno is another asteroid who is she's also sort of concerned with the hearth and the home and feminine reproductive rights and the rights of women. Again, she's at 18 degrees of Scorpio. And so we're seeing her kind of butt up against some of these 20-degree marks. That's a semi-sextile. It's not quite exact, but it's within 2 degrees. I'll give it, they're talking to each other. Like, the rights of women in communities have been feeling marginalized for a long time, especially under this administration. So it's going to be about people coming together through community, talking a lot, standing up for what they believe in, and wanting to get the truth out there. I wish some of these planets were just a little bit closer together in order for us to have more exact aspects happening. But I want everybody to understand who might be seeing that even though there's a lot of chaos going on in this chart, and certainly on the 3D level, we're seeing a lot of chaos in the news and a lot of very dramatic things happening, especially out in the West Coast. And if you watched earlier in the live, I did bring up the astrocartography chart for LA as well. So you can see how both the Neptune and Saturn lines are going through the city of LA itself, which is a suggestion to me that there are events that are going to be happening there during this full moon. And I would say we're days away from the full moon on the 11th, but we're already seeing these things starting to happen in LA. So LA is definitely going to be a stage, an arena to watch over the next few days as these big things unfold. Now, what's interesting to me is going to be what happens when we have this Jupiter, Pluto quincunx come into exact exactitude in a few days. I think that'll happen a few days after the full moon. So it might not be as dramatic as it could be if it were to happen on the full moon, but I still think it's going to be plenty dramatic to watch unfold. It's definitely, there's going to be a lot of change, a lot of things in the air that require us to really reflect and think about what it is that is happening externally and where we align with ourselves ideologically on the inside, and show up for our communities, organize, plan. We've got those great aspects with Chiron, helping us to communicate and heal through taking decisive action and planning with our communities and showing up for women as well. So I think that we're living in times that the textbooks and the history books are going to look back on and say, this is when America changed. It wasn't during the Pluto return of America. It was right after the Pluto return, because that's when everything got kicked off. But now we're seeing the fallout of that, and we're going back to our American roots of revolution, rebellion, and just throwing off the shackles of people kind of trying to control us from the top down, and getting back to who we were as a country when we became a country, became a nation, when we stood up for no taxation without representation, which basically that's what tariffs are, you guys. Like, I don't know if you know that, but that's what that is. We're having to dig deep, go back to our roots, and come forth with a newer, better, more harmonious version for everybody. That's what this next 20-year journey with Pluto and Aquarius is going to be bringing us. But again, like I said at the very, very, very beginning, it is overwhelming if you watch the news and you are taking in all of this negative energy. So you have to fill your own cup first. And that's where mindfulness, that's where meditation and manifestation practices come in. That can look like anything from sitting with yourself and looking at your astrology chart and saying, okay, well, this is where the energy is trending towards, or this is, I've got Pluto and Saturn in these houses and they're causing some friction. And where do I need to cultivate change? Because your astrology chart will help to show that to you. And it will help you connect with your own intuition and guide you on your unique journey. So if you would like some mindfulness questions for reflection, I've written some for each of the rising signs. So you can grab a journal or look back at this when you want to. So for the Aries rising, this full moon would be in your 9th house. The 9th house is the house of beliefs, expansion, higher purpose, truth, and travel. So ask yourself, what limiting belief are you ready to release to make space for deeper, more profound truth? And if you want to be mindful, you could observe the stories that you've inherited about success or freedom, and do they still serve your path? And where might you be shrinking yourself? This full moon is all about Jupiter and it's all about expansion. So where could you expand your energy into to help better serve your communities? Okay, Taurus rising. This full moon is in your 8th house. The 8th house is intimacy, it's transformation, and shared energy and resources. So ask yourself, what emotional patterns are you ready to shed to feel more safe in intimate situations and with those more darker taboo subjects that are all those 8th house themes: sex, death, taxes, and literal transformation, death, rebirth cycles. And those are metaphorical, by the way. Like, we all are constantly sort of dying and being reborn in one way or another. So your mindfulness tip is to try to be present with any discomfort that you might be feeling. Taurus risings, I know you like to be comfortable, but sometimes discomfort is pointing you to a new truth, and is often the portal to deep healing. Okay, Gemini risings, this full moon will be in your 7th house, the house of partnerships and mirrors. And And romantic official partnerships are also included in that. So not just business partnerships, but also romantic marriage partnerships. So ask yourself in meditation, what relationship patterns have run their course, and how can you show up more mindfully with your partners in life? Now, if for mindfulness practice, notice what your partnerships are teaching you about yourself. What is it that you seek out in a partner, and what is important in a partnership to you? Okay, for Cancer risings, we've got Jupiter has just moved into your sixth house, so things are going to get really good for you for the most part. But Jupiter also brings its challenges as well as its blessings, but for the most part, it's all good stuff. For Cancer risings, how can you honor your daily rhythms with greater compassion and presence? This full moon will be in your sixth house, is the house of wellness. That's general health and vitality, as well as work, daily habits, and devotion, and helping and serving others in your community. So how can you honor your daily rhythms with greater compassion and presence? And for mindfulness practice, try to bring some awareness to the habits that might feel draining after you do them versus those that feel like they're energizing and they light you up and they make you happy and excited. And just notice what comes up for you. There's not a right or a wrong answer, but those things that drain you ultimately probably should be let go of at some point. Now, if you're a Leo rising, this full moon will be in your fifth house, the house of creativity, joy, and self-expression, as well as children. So here's your meditation prompt. What stories do I care about worthiness in expressing myself truly, fully, and freely are you carrying around? Are you shrinking in some way? Or do you need to expand your creative expression in some way? So being mindful, tune into how joy feels in your body. What does it feel like when you're happy, when you're smiling and really like feeling bubbly and giggly? And follow the thread of that frequency, because it's joy and love are never wrong. They're never wrong. Society might put some rules on about who, what, when, where, and etc., but often life just doesn't like to follow the rules. So Virgo rising, I know you love rules, but this full moon will be in your fourth house, the fourth house of home, roots, emotional safety, and security. So when you sit down to meditate, you might want to think, what are you ready to release from your emotional past to feel more at home within yourself in the present? Now, that can be anything. There's no right or wrong answers. Whatever comes up for you. But then notice your body's response to places, to people, and memories that you might have in your physical home. When you are walking around your house and you are touching things and seeing things, what is lighting you up? You know, the Marie Kondo thing, like what sparks joy? That's the thing you want to be focusing on. And maybe let some things go that bring you sadness. You know, make space for new, fresh energy to come on. Thank it, let it go. That's a wonderful practice. For Libra risings, this full moon is in your third house, the house of communication, learning, and mindset. And so you can ask yourself how you can be more mindful in the way that you speak, learn, and connect with others. A lot of times this can just come down to listening, but in order to be able to respond well, you've got to be able to listen well first, right? So within your own thought process, while you're being mindful, watch for thought loops that kind of might pop up and rear their ugly heads. We all have them, even me. I'm not good at this stuff, which is why I do this show, by the way. But watch for those thought loops and those self-talk moments. And do they uplift you and encourage you, or do they just make you feel shittier? So, you know, figure out which one is doing what, and then let go of the ones that are not serving you with positive energy. You know, having discernment is one thing, but letting the negative self-talk and the doubt weigh you down and rule your life is not the way forward. Okay, Scorpio risings, this full moon is in your second house, the house of self-worth, values, and resources. So this is what we earn, our earning potential, right? So what old narrative around your value is ready to be released? Again, full moons are all about letting go of things. It's also a culmination time. So there could be things that are coming up in a big way that need to go away or really be brought back in and you know, made like have gratitude for them. So for your mindfulness practice, you can try to ground in your body when you feel uncertain or whether or not your worth might be what you think it is, or maybe you're worth more than you actually think it is. But you got to figure it out for yourself first, because your worth is not up for negotiation. It's just not. Okay, for Sagittarius risings, this full moon will be in your first house, most likely. And so the first house is the house of identity, self image, and embodiment. It's also the house of the physical body. So be careful, because there's a lot of kind of dangerous, almost aggressive energy happening out there right now. So be very aware and very careful of your physicality during these few days. But while you're in meditation, you could ask yourself, what old version of yourself are you ready to let go of? And what truth that's true for you do you need to embody more of more fully? So when you're being mindful, you can watch how you speak about yourself. Do your words reflect your growth? And are they authentic? Are they authentic? Are your actions, in other words, aligning with your words? Are you doing the things that you say you believe in, or are you just paying them lip service? And really, cut the crap if you're not living your authentic truth, because no one can live it for you, and you are here on this planet to live your life, nobody else's. So Capricorn risings, this full moon will be in your 12th house. This is the house of surrender, rest, soul healing, but it's also the house of hidden enemies. So what unconscious fears or karmic patterns are you ready to release with grace? And this can happen over time and incrementally. It doesn't happen all at once necessarily, but you can, while you're in your mindfulness practice, you can allow the silence to speak and trust that wisdom that comes up and that bubbles up in the stillness. Because sometimes those fears have to come from a place of solitude and stillness in order for us to really be able to pinpoint what it is. So try to take some time to get quiet and sit still with yourself, Capricorn rising folks. Okay, Aquarius risings, this full moon's in your 11th house. This is the house of community, vision, future dreams, and dreams coming true. So what collective dreams do you want to align with? And what fears hold you back from belonging? So we all have fears, we all have dreams and things that we want to accomplish. So really take notice again, be mindful and reflect on how you participate in your community, and does it reflect your truth? Make sure that you are showing up with integrity. And lastly, but certainly not least, Pisces rising, this full moon is in your 10th house, the house of career, reputation, life's purpose, and public standing. So here's your meditation prompt. What are you ready to release in your public path to create more space for a calling that truly feeds your spirit? Now, notice the difference between striving and trying to force something to happen versus soul-led, dream-led ambitions. And those are the key. Those are the things that are really coming from your heart to help light you up. So I hope that is helpful for you all who might have been watching. If you have any questions about astrology, I've got a few minutes. You can hop in the chat and ask me questions about what might be going on, what I see happening down the road. But we're getting into one of the most intense periods of the year, astrologically speaking, with Jupiter now moving into Cancer, squaring Pluto. That's going to be a big transit. And then we've also got Saturn or Jupiter will then be also squaring Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries shortly thereafter. So we're getting ready for a couple of weeks of really wild astrological energy. And I hope that mindfulness, meditation, and manifestation practices can help ground you in your purpose, sense of purpose, and help you find, your own internal light so that you can share it with others who are going to need it. Because we're all on this little rock floating around in space together, and we need each other, especially in dark times. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been helpful, beneficial. If you would like to book a session with me so I can look at your chart, there's a link below in the description. If you'd like to sign up for the Daily Dose, it's my daily email newsletter that goes out every morning at 6 a.m. that talks about the astrology of the upcoming day. And it supports me, it supports the show. And I also wanted to say, I know I've been a little quiet on social media lately. I have been taking a bit of a break. I just finished grad school. I'm getting ready to take a long trip, but I'll be back in July. And I'm also lining up a lot of great guests for the podcast and the show. So there will be more goodness coming from Blood Moon Milk in the future. I'm also writing, I've been writing a book forever, but this one I think I'm going to finish sooner than later. So there's stuff that I'm working on behind the scenes right now that might not be super obvious if you're just following me on social media, but I suggest you subscribe to the channel, sign up for that newsletter. It's $8 a month for, you get 5 newsletters a week. Friday's edition is the weekend edition, so it covers you every day. So check that out if you love astrology and you want a daily dose of astrology from me. I try to make it really accessible and down to earth, and so that you learn a little bit at a time incrementally. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have any questions, comments, leave me a comment below and I'll get back to you. All right, until next time, I wish you all the best the stars have to offer.